Welcome to We Chat Divorce, hosted by Karen Chellew, Legal Liaison, and Catherine Shanahan, CDFA. Each episode, we sit down with divorce professionals and industry experts to provide insights and frank discussions about real people, real situations, and real divorce to help you achieve your best life post-divorce. This episode of We Chat Divorce is brought to you by My Divorce Solution, offering divorce financial planning so clients can secure the divorce settlement they deserve. Visit mydivorcesolution.com to request access.
Welcome to We Chat Divorce, brought to you by My Divorce Solution and hosted by myself, Karen Chellew, Legal Liaison, and Catherine Shanahan, Divorce Financial Specialist and CDFA. On these special explainer episodes, we answer the top questions about divorce, giving you confidence and clarity. We often run across articles that spark a need for us to elaborate on, and that's exactly what we're doing today.
You're going to like this one today because we're going to unpack an article that Forbes published, and it's titled 8 Ways to Lower the Cost of Divorce. So let's get started.
So let's start out with what this article is all about. Divorce is painful, the article says, and sometimes necessary and often expensive. A person named Kathleen James of Downers Grove, Illinois, said she was divorced at age 50 and woefully underestimated the expense. These days, a traditional divorce for a couple over 50 with a house, retirement savings, and a lifetime of belongings can cost up to $100,000. But fortunately, there are ways to keep divorce fees substantially lower than that. And we certainly agree with the approach of the article, because that's why we developed the MDS Financial Portrait. It is not uncommon for us to see people lost in the process coming to us for help after having spent 100, 150 in less than 12 months.
That's so true. And it's often frustrating that they have to spend more to actually get any clarity.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dig a little deeper. The first way is choose your divorce process. Many couples currently want to use the mediation process. It seems like a more gentle way. Most people think it's less expensive. The other way is litigation, collaborative, DIY divorce. There's many ways to approach divorce. And, some of you may have options and some of you may not. Some of you may find yourself in litigation with no option to mediate or option to have another pathway. But what is most important is that you do the preparation work first. And Catherine, I think you would agree with that.
Yeah, Karen, I think, over 80% of the people, if they just started the process differently because they have a choice to start it differently, it really does matter how you start. Because quite honestly, if you're experiencing divorce for this first time, mediation, litigation, collaborative, do it yourself, that all sounds like a big cloud over you, right? Because how do you know which process would be best? All you know is that one, your spouse is saying, we're going to mediate this. We don't need attorneys. It'll cost too much. I'll give you more if we could do it this way. Or people are talking to you collaborative. You don't have to go to the court. You don't have to go into a courtroom. You can settle this beyond that. Litigation sounds so scary, and do it yourself. Oh yeah, we have a simple estate. We could just do this ourselves. Well, all of those can create lots of costs, additional costs, further frustration, because you don't really know what process will work for you until you are prepared. How many times, Karen, do we see people that go hire an attorney, to go to mediation or to go hire a mediator because somebody referred them, but they're not prepared? So how do you know who can handle the complexities of your case when you don't even know what your state is made up of?
Absolutely. And that just goes back to people believe that hiring an attorney is the first step. We may buy into consultation with an attorney so you know generally what your legal pitfalls may be, but preparation is really your first step. And we'll say that all day long. Number two, use associates and paralegals when possible. Most of you, if you have hired an attorney, will receive a professional services agreement that will talk about, the attorney you hired and whether or not they have associates and paralegals available to you. Some attorneys don't have those assistants to help. So this article says use them when possible. Generally, that's a good thing, but you just need to make sure that the associates and paralegals aren't what we call churning your file and just processing paper and not moving your file forward. So when more people are involved in your case, it's more important that you're reviewing the invoices to make sure that your case is actually moving forward, that you're not getting double, triple billed. And then we would definitely buy into paralegals and associates being an asset to your file.
Yeah, just be clear that, a lot of times people are expecting their lead attorney to show up at meetings or to show up at a mediation or pre-trial hearing or whatever it is. Make sure that that the associate might be showing up, because there's been a lot of times that people have called where they've been really upset because their lead attorney did not show up because they said it would be too expensive. So make sure you understand, who's taking over what during your process. And remember, when you're emailing these people, everybody that's included on your email, they're all billing you to look at that email. So you want to clarify what's happening if you're working with an attorney and their team.
Absolutely. Number 3, get your financial records organized. So what we all may know, and the article states as well, almost half of what an attorney does is organizing your file and understanding what the finances are. There's a much better way to do that because, on its face, your attorney or your mediator is organizing your file and understanding what the finances are. You're not. And then you're dependent upon their interpretation and translation, as your facts. When you're able to take control and prepare the file yourself and understand what it means, it's a whole different journey for you.
Yeah. I want to give you a little different thought here for yourself. If you're thinking being organized is just such an overwhelming task, well, first of all, that's what we do here at MDS. But organization, and you can look this up, being organized gives you such a boost in your self-confidence. So just imagine yourself walking into your attorney's office or your mediator's meeting, and you just have all these papers that were thrown at everybody. That feels so, excuse me, that feels so disheveled. And how do you have any kind of clarity if there's just papers all over the place? But imagine going into those same appointments and you know exactly what you have, what you need, what's rightfully yours, or you need to find out what's rightfully yours, but you know the data. Everything's based on the data being right there in front of you in a summary format with documents to support that. Imagine your confidence going into that. You don't have to then spend all this time apologizing if you were the stay-at-home mom or the stay-at-home dad, or apologizing that you were never involved with your finances before. You don't need to apologize for that, but you should be organized, because I'm promising you, you will feel so much more confident, even if you don't have a clear understanding of what the impact of everything is yet. Just being organized will change the way that you move through the process.
Absolutely. And being organized and knowing the information and the financial impact is the MDS method. It's what we do every day, all day, to empower clients to own the knowledge of their marital estate. Susan Guthrie says in this article, doing this spade work yourself can save thousands of dollars in fees. We certainly agree. Number 4 is email, don't phone. So this has to do with communication with your divorce professionals. And the reason the article says email, don't phone, number 1 is that your request and your conclusions are all in writing. A lot of times I do tell or recommend to our clients that even if you have a phone conversation, you really should follow up with an email, because if you're on with another person or 2 people or 3 people, I'm pretty sure every person in that discussion walked away with something a little bit different of what was just discussed. But emailing forces you to be concise and clear, and that's a really important part of communication in this process, because it is very emotional, and so it will force you to be very pragmatic or more pragmatic in your discussions.
Yeah, I mean, look at the two of us. We could be on the same meeting and walk away ourselves with something different. So you have definitely trained me to do that follow up via email. And it makes me feel better, because I'd rather you correct something that I thought I heard than me to continue on my path of doing it in accordance with what I heard when it really wasn't what was detailed in the meeting. So I love that process, and I use that process every day in my life with anything outside of business as well.
Yeah. And I'm going to say in this space too of email, don't phone, and I believe this is in the space of communication. It's easy to get ahead of yourself. It's easy to get distracted with, I don't know, a current, something that happened today, or you get unnerved about something. Most of the time, it's not an emergency, right? So if you can just pause, even if it's for a couple hours or sometimes even 24 hours to give yourself time to neutralize what you want to communicate about will save you lots of time and money as well. Because a lot of times people bring these things up to their attorney, and it's really a discussion with a therapist or with your financial team or something else. But just allowing yourself time to process whatever is upsetting you before you shoot out communication will really benefit you too.
Yeah, an example of that is I've seen emails go out that they have 15 items they want to cover. I can promise you they're not responding to all 15 items. They're going to respond to what they want to respond to. So really take that tip that Karen just gave. Think about what it is that what is the important information you need back, and keep it simple. And even if your attorney wants to hop on the phone call, and they typically will, especially if you do email a lot of questions, follow up with the email. Follow up with an email after that call.
Absolutely. Number 5, avoid paying for appraisals when you can. That may seem like it came out of left field, right? But if you're in the divorce process, I'm sure one of the early conversations you have with your attorney or mediator is, let's get things valued, whether it's vehicles or real estate or businesses. And a big reason for that is because attorneys and mediators are not financials, right? So they want to get that addressed right out of the gate, so that they can move your case forward. However, there's a lot of cost-effective ways to get valuations, especially if you're going to mediation. And if you start to get appraisals and valuations right out of the gate, it may be old news by the time they're really relevant and being considered by your attorneys and or the courts themselves. And so if that happens, then you have to update, and that's just more costly. Do you have anything to add there, Catherine?
No, you hit it with a nail on the head right there. That's exactly right. It will be outdated and costly, and you don't even know what you're looking for actually until you get into your whole estate.
Absolutely. And then everybody's involved because you don't have the paperwork to give them. It just kind of goes on and on. So, first of all, avoid if you can, and then delay as far as you can. You can get pretty far down the road with, generally estimating your assets. You don't need valuations. This article, and we agree, is just delay or make sure you're being cost effective.
Yeah, and have a plan. Have a plan of why you need it and what you're going to use it for.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 6, for retirement funds, keep it simple. The article goes into the concept of you keep yours and I keep mine. Sometimes this may or may not be beneficial to you. And Catherine, I think you can talk about that a little more.
Yeah, this one gets me. I get that you keep yours, I keep mine if they're like assets, right? So you can have a Roth IRA and you can have a traditional IRA. They do not have the same value. A Roth IRA, for example, has already been taxed. So that's a tax-free account. A traditional IRA is growing tax deferred. So if I have a traditional IRA and my spouse has a Roth IRA and their same dollar value, his is still more valuable. So I don't want him to just keep his and I keep mine. It's just an example of you have to know what the impact is of that decision. Again, with quadros, I get if we have two 401ks and they're invested the same way and they're worth about the same, we don't need to divide both of those. It would require the expense of 2 qualified domestic relations orders, which is a quadro. If I kept mine and my spouse kept his and it was an equal asset, fine. Yes, that's simpler. But you really have to understand what actually are your retirement accounts. What's the impact of you keeping yours and him keeping his, or her keeping hers, and then make that decision.
Absolutely. And Catherine, the article also says If it's not possible to you keep yours and I keep mine, do that. It says consider swapping other assets. For instance, one keeps the house and the other keeps the retirement fund. That
Mhm.
sounds pretty good on its face, but I'm sure you have something to say about that.
Well, it can work out, but you have to understand what the impact again is. If I negotiate away or my spouse's retirement plan because I want to keep the marital home, am I leaving myself with no retirement money, or is it just a portion of the retirement money? What if I don't want the house in a year later and I sell it? Sure, I'll have all this cash. I might have to pay capital gains on that sale, but now I don't have anything growing tax deferred for me. So it's okay to do if you understand the impact and where it's leaving you. Is it leaving you house poor? Is it leaving you back? How old are you? Is it leaving you back on your heels for retirement planning? Is that really worth it? So make sure you're not making an emotional decision just because it's easier or because somebody's telling you to do that. Know the impact, know the result of that, and then make that decision.
And you know what I love about the MDS method is I watch it every day. There's so many creative options that people wouldn't even know to think about unless you go through the process and you unpack the assets and the options and then, move things around to see what the impact would be. So many solutions have come out of our clients that really work for both spouses that they would just never would have thought about.
Yeah, because your attorney and your mediator are going to say, "What do you want?" And if you've been that mom that kept your house together, or that dad, I don't mean to keep saying mom or dad, but that's kept that house together, that's your comfort zone. So immediate response is going to be, "I want to keep the home and I want my kids to stay in that home." So that's the linear path they're going to take. Okay, you keep the home. And here's how I have to get your spouse the same amount of money on the other side. So they just go linear. They don't think outside that box because they're going based on what you tell them that you want. But how do you know what you want if you don't really know the impact of that decision?
Absolutely. And the third thing in this category that I like and we recommend a lot, and we actually get pushback. So it's good it's in this article. A lot of times you can avoid a quadro necessary for dividing a 401k by simply rolling it over into an IRA account if doesn't have to stay, if it's not a current employer. We often get feedback, but it really is a good cost effective option.
I talked
So,
about that yesterday with someone, and I
yeah.
said, "What? You're
Um,
not working there. You're not contributing. Roll that 401k over into an IRA. It's much easier to manage and handle moving forward."
Absolutely. Number seven, divide household items on your own all day long. Please do not pay divorce professionals to divide household items. And I know a lot of financial affidavits or disclosures in various states require you or your attorney will want you to record them. But I recommend and highly suggest that you let your attorney or mediator know that you wish to divide those off a balance sheet or outside of the confines of representation. That is not a good and cost effective way to spend your money in a divorce process.
I went through this with a client yesterday who was going to mediation, and she wants to keep the marital home. Husband's upset about some of the items in there. They've been married 35 years, so the furniture is older. But he literally, in mediation, listed out, I think, 20 or 25 things like a sofa, a chair, a recliner. And he actually put some dollar values to it, and lumped in there were their two cars. So the total came to about $50,000, let's say. Well, I just removed the cars, and the personal items were $5,000. So she said, "Oh, put that on my column. It'll make him happy that I'm counting for that. I'm getting $5,000." But it boiled down to $5,000 is my point. It's a $7 million estate, I think. So that was an emotional choice that he wanted. So everybody understood that she was keeping the house and everything that they had in it. So let somebody get that out if they want to, but you don't want to pay a mediator or an attorney to go through those items.
You're going to spend more than 5,000 right there just by the time you get the language right and then yeah, absolutely. Number eight, remember what your divorce lawyer is for. Your divorce lawyer is to get you through the actual divorce process. Your divorce lawyer is not a therapist, not a financial advisor. That is so important for everyone to remember. Your attorney can represent you so much better if you're able to be in a space of helping that person know what you want and why you want it, and they advocate forward. Now, obviously, when children are involved or parenting plans, they need context. And I'm not saying they don't need context, but to call them every other day about the new events, really try to work that through with your coach or your therapist so that you minimize the time spent in discussions with your lawyer really about things they can't help. And even if something happened, what are they going to do? Write opposing counsel, and then it's going to take days and days for things to get back, and 5 more things have happened since then. So, at least talk with your attorney about the most effective way to communicate for those emotional issues that may need legal representation, but it's important that you know how to communicate in that space.
And again, I think it boils down to being prepared, being organized, and being more confident. And then using, like you said, there are great coaches out there and therapists that can help you with the emotional side. And we, of course, are here to help you with the financial side. So thank you for
Absolutely.
joining us on this episode, 8 Ways to Lower the Cost of Divorce. Stay tuned for future episodes as we continue to unravel the fascinating world of finance and divorce. Remember, knowledge is power.
Disclaimer: the information provided in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered as financial or legal advice. Please consult with professionals in the relevant fields for personalized guidance.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of We Chat Divorce. We hope this episode was informative and supportive on your divorce journey. If you're looking for more support for navigating divorce with confidence and clarity, head over to mydivorcesolution.com for more podcast episodes, divorce events, and resources for your divorce. We'll see you back here for our next episode.